and welcome to Flip Math, Comparing Fractions Day 2. In your math notebook, in your table of contents, please write Comparing Fractions using a number line. Then when you turn to the correct page in your journal, you should write the LO, or the learning objective, for today's lesson, which is I can compare fractions using a number line. Please pause the video until you have that in your notebook. Using number lines to compare fractions. Here are the directions for what we're about to do. Use the number line to compare sets of fractions. Remember to place your benchmark fractions on the number line first, and use them to place the fractions you are comparing. Some of you may remember this from class today when we used this strategy of using the benchmarks to compare fractions. We've begun this a little bit. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to compare the fractions 3/4 and 5/12. Then we're going to write a comparison statement. You'll see that there are two number lines here. I notice that halfway between 0 and 1 is 1/2. The fraction is already there, but I put my mark there to mark halfway of the number line. Underneath it, there's a second number line that says 6/12. So knowing about equivalent fractions that we've been studying, I know that 1/2 is equivalent to 6/12. I think this will be helpful in having me compare the fractions 3/4 and 5/12. I know that halfway between 1/2 and 1 is another benchmark, and halfway between 0 and 1/2 is another benchmark. So when I'm looking at this number line here, the top number line, I see 4 parts. 1, 2, 3, 4. This number line is broken into fourths. That tells me that this first mark on my number line is not 1/2, is actually 1/4. There we go. Now I know my second benchmark, the one that's between 1/2 and 1, since this is broken into 4 pieces again, 1, 2, 3, 4, this is 3/4 on my number line. So how can I use this to help me with numbering my second number line to do the comparison? I know that 4 is a factor of 12, so I can use what I know about equivalent fractions, just like they did with the 6/12 being equivalent to 1/2. What are the equivalent fractions for 3/4 and 1/4 that have a denominator of 12? So, using my strategy, I know that 1/4 times 1 is going to give me something over 12. I know that 4 times 3 is 12. So I must, if I have 3 as my denominator, I have to have 3 as the numerator to equal 1. 4 times 3 is 12. 1 times 3 is 3. So my equivalence of 1/4 is 3/12. So I would put my 3/12 here. Now I need to find the equivalent for the 3/4. I'm going to change colors here. So if I know that 3/4 times 1 is going to give me something over the denominator 12. Now I need to figure out what's my equivalent to 1 here. 4 times what equals 12? It is 3. So it has to be 3/3 because that is the equivalent to 1. So 3 times 3 equals 9. It is 9/12. Now I need to mark where my fractions fall on the number line. And 3/4 is already here for us. And 5/12. So I see, based on my number line, 5/12 is going to be about here. Which one is closer to 1 based on my marks here? And I'm going to write a comparison statement, which is going to say 3/4 is greater than 5/12 based on the work I did on my number lines. Okay, now we're ready to do another one. Now we're going to compare the fractions 4/6 and 7/10. Write a comparison statement, just like we did before. So I am going to go ahead and start by marking my benchmark fractions for 4/6. I know that this is 1/2. And when I am needing to know my equivalents for 1/2, I know when my denominator is 6 that the equivalent is 3/6. When my denominator is 10, I know that my equivalent fraction is 5/10. Okay, so where do I go from here to compare these fractions? Okay, so one way you can do this problem is, since you know the top number line is broken into 6, you need to look and appropriately draw how many pieces the fraction is broken into. So it's 6. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I know that the equivalent to 1 is 6/6. I would do the same for my bottom fraction also, my bottom number line. I'm going to go ahead and put 4/6 up here, though, on my number line. I count 1, 6, 2, 6, 3, 6. This would be 4, 6, and I put my dot here on my number line, my point on the number line. So the bottom number line is broken into tenths. So that one's a little bit trickier. And sometimes you have to play around with the marks to get to your tenths. Okay, so it did take me a couple tries, but now you can see I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 pieces that my number line is broken into, or parts of the whole, because my denominator is 10. So I look up back at the top, I am looking for 7/10. Well, I know that 1 is equivalent to 10/10. So let me count. I have 5/10 here. This must be 6/10, and this would be 7/10. So I go ahead and put my point on my number line at the 7/10. Now I have to take into consideration that my number line is not perfect, but I'm looking at this, and 7/10 is slightly larger than 4/6. So my comparison statement for these fractions would be that 4/6 is less than 7/10. So now you get to do one on your own, or actually two, I'm sorry, in your notebook. Use number lines to compare the following. Letter A is 3/8 and 2/3, and letter B is 3/12 and 1/4. Please make sure you have these to show your teacher tomorrow. Thank you for watching.